Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I wanted to talk about levels of liberation or freedom. Ultimately, on the path to enlightenment, self-realization, self-awakening, whatever you want to call it, God realization, we slowly have to die to our ego. So we have to die before we die. We have to metaphorically die before we physically die. So in my opinion, that is the sole purpose of the human existence. And I believe if you're watching this video, you have the same beliefs. I believe Jesus was a perfect example of that. The Buddha was a perfect example of that. These were individuals who were God realized. And I want to also make a disclaimer that I am in no way, shape, or form minimizing those ascended masters. They're still very real and very alive and can be called upon, and they are real. I have experienced them in my own life through prayer and meditation, which has given me an even deeper understanding and realization that I too, and you as well, and every human being on this planet can experience the same fate. So I just want to talk about kind of my journey up until now and how these little bits of liberation have really helped me and freed me. And I hope you'll find them helpful as well. So first of all, I just want to preface this video by saying that I believe as we grow up and as we get older, we have ego identifications, and these ego identifications sort of make up who we believe we are. They become very solid and very rigid, and we start to feel very afraid if these ego concepts are threatened in any way, or if they are lost in any way. And we do whatever we can to cling to these identities. So it can be a very basic level ego identity, or it can be extremely complex. But for me, for example, I've recently gained a really strong sense of self-awareness based on, for instance, the collapse of my marriage. Like, to me, in the beginning, I really felt so much ego identification in calling myself a wife, in being a wife. And, what's funny is I didn't even realize what was happening when it was happening until that started to deconstruct, right? So then it was like, well, what am I now? If I'm not a wife, well, what am I now? And then there was, other labels that came in that I wasn't too fond of. Divorcee, like single mother. And then I thought to myself, actually, I don't need now. I literally have just become free of one identity and sort of the burden that identity carried with it. that I didn't even realize I was carrying. I think on some level I did feel the burden of it, but on another level I didn't. I was unaware. And it wasn't until I was freed of it that I realized what a burden it was to bear. And not to say like not to say, I'm not trying to like bash anyone or anything like that, right? And I'm not saying you need to be free from your marriage if you're in a marriage or a relationship and it's a encouraging, uplifting, liberating relationship where you're free to be you and you allow the other person freedom to be them. You're both growing individually. Then I think that's a beautiful thing. But if it is the opposite, you might want to look at that. But anyway, what I was saying is there's nothing but love, and that is one thing I've realized through this whole process as well. And what is also extremely liberating is that we can love people, right? Love is infinite. Love doesn't need to belong to somebody special. Love doesn't need to be put in a box and labeled. We can love everyone and anyone we want to love. From afar, in a close relationship, through an acquaintance, through a very surface level relationship. There's no boundary or limit to love. So even though I'm no longer with my ex, I still love him. And I still love all my exes prior to him. I have nothing but love for all of them. And you might say, oh, well, some of them hurt me. I think what's important to understand is whenever somebody hurts you, it is not a reflection on you. It really never has anything to do with you. It's always about the other person. The person doing the action is the only person they're harming. And when we're so caught up in an ego identity, like boyfriend, girlfriend, fiance, wife, we get extremely hurt by the things people do to us, but they're not actually doing them to us. They're doing them to themselves. And in that case, you might say, oh, well, then why even leave the relationship? Just stay in the relationship. And I think the reason you would leave a relationship like that is for growth purposes. On an energetic level, when we are exchanging energy with another person, and I mean it doesn't even have to be like a sexual energy, right? Which is like the biggest form of energetic exchange, but it could be lower levels of energetic exchange. It could be talking to them on somewhat of a regular basis. Even people you work with, you are exchanging energy with them. Your neighbors, you're exchanging energy with them. So we want to be very conscious and cautious and discerning of the energy that's coming in. Because the energy that's coming in, the energy we're ultimately opening ourselves up to, can either hurt our process of growth or can aid our process of growth. So we need to be very aware and conscious of the energy that we're allowing in our lives. So going back to liberation and freedom, I think if we can remove the ego identities that are built up around certain things, that frees us, right? Now, now if somebody hurts us, we know that that's not a reflection of us, that there's no reason for us to take anything personally. And then that frees up so much energy, right? Because normally if somebody hurts us, we're crying, we're upset, we're thinking about it, we're talking about it with other people. That's a lot of energy that's being expended, used, burnt up, when that energy could be stored and used for something more positive. But this also has to come from a very natural place, right? We cannot engineer or force this because we also don't want to repress emotions. But I think if you're understanding what I'm saying and you can, on an intellectual level, then I think you already know what I mean. And I've noticed through my own self-awareness, inventory, because it's very important to take inventory of yourself and behaviors and reactions that you need to improve upon. But I've noticed with myself, like, if something happens, I don't need to complain about it. I don't need to even really share it with somebody else. And I was in the habit of doing this. And I noticed that about myself. I noticed when something happens, I'm in this habit of like exchanging complaints with this other person. Like this person complains to me about their stuff and I complain to them about my stuff. But then I realized like that was such a large basis of the relationship between me and this other person. But then I realized like that is not the basis I want for any relationship. So what in me is allowing this, is causing this? And then I also really realized, like I said, when we are in relationship with other people and they open certain doors, energetic doors, you know, people are energy portals, right? When we're interacting with them, we're going into their energy field and they're coming into our energy field. And it might be, you know, I've found in my own life that certain people have, and you can look at this in your own life too. If you have somebody who you know doesn't think so highly of you, and then when you interact with that person, you find yourself doing things that are out of character. And then when you interact with somebody who thinks very highly of you, you find yourself being the best version of yourself. And you're like, wait a minute. Am I acting independently, or are these people influencing how I'm behaving? So that was very eye-opening for me too. And I think, and I don't want to make an assumption, but you know, people often say like people pleaser, right? That's like a personality type of people pleaser. And I think for me, when I look at that aspect, I feel like, well, that is like, that's being a people pleaser. No matter what this person thinks of me, whether it's bad or it's negative, I'm giving them what they want. But what's funny is I feel like it happens on this very unconscious level on my part. I don't even realize I'm doing it. So, you know, I've just been looking at all these little different things, but then at the same time, in shining the light of awareness on all these things, I'm really coming to realize like You know, if you think like, oh, well, if you can be one way with somebody who thinks negatively of you, and you can be another way with somebody who thinks positively of you, who are you really then? If you're not acting any way and these people are influencing you to act certain ways, then who are you really? But what I realize in saying that is I'm no one. And this goes back to basic quantum physics, Buddhism, Christ. There's an experiment in quantum physics that showed, I believe it was, I might get my facts incorrect because I'm just recalling this off the top of my head. But what's that movie that came out a long time ago? Oh, I forget what it was called. Shoot, what the Bleep or something? I don't know. It was all about quantum physics, though. But and you can find this on the internet too. But they said essentially when an observer came in, so an observer could be another human being, an animal, a camera, really anything, just an observing force came in. It influenced the way, I don't know, I think it was the atoms were acting. And the Buddha said, there is no I. Christ said, the Father and I are one. It is not me who does the work, but the Father in me, meaning the Creator, pure consciousness, pure awareness. Referencing my other video that I did, I'll put the link to that in the description box below, but I talk about oneness in that video, saying how there really is no other. There is no me, there is no you, or you. There is just the one that has fragmented themselves. And we are believing that we're separate. But that God that has fragmented itself into all these different beings is experiencing itself through all these different beings. Through your eyes, through your mouth, through your taste, through your touch, through your smell. But really, there is no you. And I think the first step to realizing that is to deconstruct this ego. And we really start by deconstructing this ego by saying, you're not your job. You're not your job title. Whether you love your job or not, you're not your job title. You're not a boyfriend or a girlfriend, a wife or a mother, a father or a husband. You're not this race or that race. You're not even this gender or that gender. And I think little by little, if we can start removing these strongholds that we have around these identities, major strongholds around these identities, it's one step closer to liberation. Because what are you doing? You're freeing yourself. And that's what I realized, like I said, through the deconstruction of my marriage was, and I mean, you know, with a marriage, it's a lot of different aspects, right? It's not only the relationship, but I had lived in the same house for over a decade. I had put so much work and effort an energy of my own into that home. And I moved. But it was also a deconstruction of that representation, right? Like, I'm a wife and I'm a homeowner. And this is my home. And this is how I decorate my home. But these are all ego constructs, and ultimately they're consumer-driven ego constructs built around a society that's created structures. We need to own a home. We need to get married. Oh, you decorate your home like this? Oh, I decorate my home like this. Oh, this is called modern contemporary. Oh, this was called farmhouse. Do you see what I mean? So I think little by little, if we can become aware, and I'm not saying we have to dislike these things, right? You could thoroughly enjoy all of this, right? You could thoroughly enjoy interior decorating, thoroughly enjoy fashion, beauty. I enjoy all of those things. I think those things are beautiful, can be beautiful manifestations of God. The problem is when we become attached to those things and we build up our identity and ultimately our ego in those things. So then the loss of those things becomes the loss of ourselves. And when you have nothing, metaphorically speaking, you don't actually have to have nothing. When you have nothing, you have nothing to lose. And that makes you very dangerous. Powerful and dangerous. And not dangerous in a bad way. Dangerous in a, wow, can't mess with her. Can't mess with him. They're unattached. They're what's unbothered. Hashtag unbothered. So take a look at your life. Start to observe. Start to become an observant in your own life. And think about the things that I've said in this video. Do you find yourself acting a certain way around certain people you know think certain things about you? Do you have strong ego identity with certain things in your life? Sports teams? Are you a Swiftie? Are you a girlfriend? Are you a minority? What is it for you? And do those things have a stronghold in your life? Meaning, if you were to lose those identities, would you feel panicked? Would you feel, well, I can't be that. If I can't be that, then what am I? So take a look, observe, question, become aware of your tendencies, behaviors, how you interact. Become aware also of where you're spending your energy. Yeah. And then slowly start to see if you can become free of those things. I think you'll be surprised at just the self-awareness of them will even feel a little, like it'll make you feel a little lighter. You'll feel like, oh, I'm not carrying such a heavy load. What does the Bible say? My load is light and my load is easy and my burden is light, something like that. So yeah, just start to become aware. And then please come back to this video and comment. Let me know your progress. And I ask too that when you do become aware, you share these revelations with somebody you trust. Because it will motivate and encourage them to do the same. Maybe not at first, but eventually it will. And I think if we can all do this, we can aid in assisting each other to awaken in a quicker way, in a more encouraging, supportive, and collaborative way, versus feeling like you're alone on an island, which is not a bad place to be, by the way. So yeah, please like, subscribe, share, comment. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.